All right, let's get into the early games. The first game on the schedule for 1:00. The Bengals plus 13.5 at DraftKings. They are visiting the Ravens. The Ravens who beat the Redskins by 14 and probably could have beat them by 24.
At least.
They gave up 10 garbage points.
And this is going to be one of those where, like, this is going to be a public dog. With Cincy at this big of a number, most people have won on Joe Burrow. Like we talked about earlier, we like Joe Burrow. He's fun to root for. He's a cool dude. When's it going to run out? They're 4-0 right now against the spread. So it's a tough spot where, like, me personally, I'm going to bet the Ravens here and try to fade this rookie QB after winning at home and feeling good all week, where the Ravens just usually beat up on crappy teams. It was the same logic last week where I had no problem taking the Ravens and putting them in a lot of parlays and bets together. So this is another week where I'm going to back the Ravens. And I know we don't like taking these big favorites, so we can put them on the side, but I wouldn't hate come game time that we put them in.
So that's a tricky number, right? Because that game, we got it at 12.5, but by the time it closed, it was at 14. So you pushed if you ended up betting on the Ravens against the Redskins. It's like that to the conversation we were just having. You got to be ready to bet when you see a number that you like and you have a strong opinion. I think I agree with you on this. And I think I agree. I'm looking at the number right now. Like, there's so much Bengals love. There's so much Joe Burrow love. You almost have to break down who he's done it against, right?
Exactly.
And the Ravens do not play down to the level of their opponent. They play incredibly well, and then they got beat by a really good team a couple weeks ago. I think they could destroy this team. I think they might actually kill Joe Burrow.
And I think it's like another position of the Bengals that if this number was 14.5, 14, I'd probably stay away. But if it keeps coming down and people keep betting it, we can get it at 13, 12.5, like you were saying. I don't mind taking that number because that gives us some coverage if there is a chance of a weird extra missed like point, or a lot of teams are going for 2 now. So it just gives me more coverage.
Yeah, that's insane, by the way. How many teams are going for 2 right now? Like the Eagles opened up going for 2. By the way, 57% of the bets so far are on the Cincinnati Bengals, which is astonishing, which means it honestly means let's hope the number goes down. Like,
right.
Let's,
I'm not going to bet that yet. I'm going to wait for it to go down a little.
Right. We might get a little lucky on that one. The Eagles going for 2, right out of the gate the other night. That just felt like Doug Peterson knows his team is in dire straits. They got to get points on the board. They got to get some confidence going. That's a guy who's comfortable in his job. And he's like, just screw it. Let's be the best we can be right now. But it is amazing how aggressive teams are being, how much more often teams are going for it on 4th. There's never a game that I'm spewing everything that's in my head right now. There's never a game that it feels like your cover is safe.
And I've been doing these bets for a long time, but you can bet on a lot of sites for the first half. You can bet if it's going to be a tie, or you can pick each side money line because you get better odds on the money line. I've been doing that a lot because a lot of times these teams are going with weird numbers and missed extra points that you can cover these money lines by 1 point, like I did with the Eagles in that game for the first half. So that's something to be on the lookout for betting. You can get good value on betting those.
Second game, Panthers at Falcons. Falcons played last night, got beat up again. They are, it looks like 3-point favorites at home. Interesting. It almost feels like a trap to me. I hate betting the Falcons, and I bet them Tuesday afternoon. I bet them last night against the Packers. I hate betting the Falcons, and we've loved betting the Panthers so far this year. But this feels a little bit trappy to me.
Yeah, and it was good last week. We talked in the pod. We had liked the Cardinals, and as the week went on, of course, my guys from Vegas reach out and they go, "You're stepping in it." I go, "All right, let me look at it again." And you do look at the numbers in the Cardinals, their offense. I went back and I watched a bunch of their games from week 13 to 17 last week, and you can see how they're doing weird. I don't know why he's doing it, but he's throwing everything underneath now. They're not really pushing it downfield. And the run scheme is weird in the sense that he's running on downs like first down all the time, which he wasn't really doing last year. He was taking high percentage downfield throws on first down. And the Carolina, that was definitely the right side. As we saw the number kept coming down, we got scared off of it and we moved off Carolina, the Cardinals last week. So this week, the Panthers are now 2 straight wins on a team that we know their defense isn't that good. They've been playing well, but they're young. And Quinn still isn't fired. And the number was weird. We're opened at 3.5, and I knew everyone was going to be on that number. So I was like, I'm just going to wait to bet the Falcons, especially after last night's loss. So I would be with you here. I would take the Falcons, but I would have to wait and see what the deal is with Julio, because he went out last night. I think he had like 10 snaps or something like that, and he was done. And I don't know. Calvin Ridley, I love the kid, but he was gone last night. He didn't do anything. And it makes me a little nervous where he could be taken away. And then what are we left with on the Falcons? An old Todd Gurley and a third receiver and Hurst at tight end. So we can wait on that number, but I do like the Falcons here.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things here, right? Number one, a reminder, if you ever want to have job security, just go work at Home Depot, because if Arthur Blank hasn't fired Dan Quinn at this point, like, think of what you would have to do at Home Depot to get fired. Like, I can't even imagine. We'll continue that theme throughout the year until Dan Quinn is actually let go. Number one. Number two, Julio Jones did not look good. He was limping around. They were bringing scrubs off the street in the middle of the game to play against Aaron Rodgers in the defensive backfield. That was terrible. Calvin Ridley is very much on the path to being the Matt Ryan of wide receivers. And what I mean by that is he is a guy who only racks up big numbers in games that don't mean anything, in times that don't mean anything, except they look amazing at the end of the game. He is like going to go down as the greatest fantasy receiver of all time. So let's stay away from that game for now and let's wait. Even then, even when the number gets good, we don't want any part of that game.
All right, I'm with you.
Let's see. Bills Titans is not on the board yet. We just don't know what's going on with the Titans. We have good signs, a lot of negative tests, but there's no number. So then we get the Las Vegas Raiders visiting the Kansas City Chiefs, 1 p.m. in Kansas City, 3 games in 11 days for the Kansas City Chiefs that have a horrendous rushing defense going up against Josh Jacobs, a tremendous passing defense against Derek Carr, who's, credit to credit, he's done okay this year.
Yeah,
I think they're blown out.
You do. I think it's one of these every year. I always take the Raiders in this spot against Mahomes because it's always a big number like this, and I never cover. I might once a blue moon, but it's not profitable taking teams against the Chiefs. And like last night, I stared at that minus 11.5 for about an hour. And I just said, all right, screw it. I'm just going to do the adjusted line and just bring it down to 6 because I was just so scared of Belichick and how big of a number it was. And I can't take the Chiefs here where Derek Carr, I know he didn't look great last week, but when they're healthy on offense, they're good. And he's not turning the ball over. And this is kind of one of those games where the public's all going to probably end up on this Vegas number because it is so big. And the Raiders haven't looked terrible. Like last week, I know you can think they looked terrible. They just had injuries. And it was just one of those where it snowballed. And they went 3 and out. Josh Allen just took it down the field and scored. So the Bills are just humming. So we're going to stay away from this one, but I'll probably end up on the Raiders and hate myself.
What would it take you to bet the Chiefs here?
So I had this at minus 10. So I would have taken the Chiefs if it was anything around there. Because this number, I don't mind taking the Chiefs here. It's under 2 touchdowns. And we've seen how for these good teams, as long as you're under 14, it's been holding true. And a lot of these teams haven't been getting backdoor that's at that big of a number. But just like with the Rams last week, it makes me a little nervous taking these big numbers against teams where they have a competent offense. Like the Raiders, they can score. So it just makes me a little nervous on that number that big.
Yeah. By the way, what is your number on the Bengals Ravens and what is your number on the Bears Bucks?
Bengals Ravens?
Yeah.
So the Bears Bucks, I had it at 3. I had Tampa -3.
Okay.
And with the Ravens, I got it again at -14. I just don't see why it's not still 2 touchdowns, where it's like you should just make this a coin flip game where it's going to either come down to a missed extra point or a 2-point conversion to cover that number. Because it's just that's the only thing that makes me nervous with the Ravens. They're kind of getting me. They're trapping me in there with that 13.5. It's like, oh, that's really nice of them. Give me that. So it makes me a little nervous with that one.
All right. Eagles visiting the Steelers. Steelers getting back on the field. They are getting a lot of the bets. They're more than touchdown favorites. 7.5, getting a lot of the bets right now, which makes sense. Like people not yet buying into the Eagles, which I can believe. Let me see if I have an opinion on this. Do I have a snap opinion on this game? Yes, give me the Steelers.
And this is going to be a Joe's versus Pros. This is like classic where the Steelers are healthy. They just had a bye week. Eagles' whole offensive line has pretty much been replaced. They were at one point there, the only starter they had left was the center. So I can't not take the Eagles here at 7.5. And it's just such a letdown game for the Steelers where they've had a week off. They're going to come out slow and it's going to come down to the very end. And I could see the Steelers covering 7, but I love the extra hook with the 7.5 with the Eagles.
No. Here's why. Like, I feel like this game probably should have been, if the Steelers had played this past week, they're beating the Titans. That's just me saying it. They'd be a much bigger favorite over the Eagles at this point. And I feel like you're getting a little bit of value like on the Steelers because the Eagles finally won a game and it was in prime time and they beat up on the Niners. Like even without sort of the Steelers playing last weekend, this game to me, what's your number here? You should make this number 9. That's what it should be.
No, I had it at 4.5, and then after the injuries to the Eagles on the Sunday night game, I moved it to 6. And I think it's one of those where it's like, I'm with you. Like this is an easy play. The Steelers should kill these guys. But are we sure the Steelers are good? Like who have they played? Go through who have they played. So that's one of those where I'm going to back the Eagles here and think I need to see the Steelers prove it to me. They're not playing the Giants. They're not playing Houston. They're not playing these teams that we've already seen they're not that good. So I'm going to back the Eagles here, and I'm going to let the public come in on the Steelers.
All right, fine. We'll take the Eagles.
Listen,
man, I just want to make the money. That's
all I want.
To make the money. I don't have pride of authorship here. I got opinions. If you tell me I'm wrong, we're going to go in the other direction. That's all there is to it. Boy, the Rams, man, I knew the Giants were the right side of that game the other day. And I let somebody else talk me into taking the Rams. And I'm like, well, this is just dumb. Like the Rams are not the Chiefs. They're not the Ravens. They're not the team that you can bet a big number against. And sure enough, it's exactly what happened. And now they're visiting Washington, the Washington football team. Looks like they are at DraftKings 8.5-point favorites. What's your number here?
Yeah, it seems like the public's with you. So I had this game at 7 for the Rams, and it opened at 9.5 with the football team. And basically people backing Washington I think they're still believing in Haskins and that they could keep this close, that the Rams aren't as good as people think they are, and that like that Giants game was just funky. Like it was the same thing with Nick Foles. Nick Foles is missing some wide open guys. So was Goff. Goff was just off in that game. So I'm going to bet on a bounce back spot here and keep fading the football team. I'll take the Rams. Hopefully it gets to 7 so I get good value, but it's at 7.5 right now.
All right. So we might want to put the Rams on our list.
Yeah, especially if the line keeps coming down. Just for everything I've seen from Washington, they're banged up on their interior and you can run on them. And that's like the same reason I liked the Rams last week. They're a running team. So if they get it turning on the ground, that's when Goff really takes off. So I'm going to back them here in this and take this number, even though it's It's high. It's a high number to be back in the Rams on the road with, especially coming across country.
Well, let's wait and see if it comes down a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
We'll have to have a conversation on Sunday morning, you and me, two adults in partnership together, and we're going to make a collective decision about whether or not the Rams or the Eagles end up making our top 5. I need another opinion. What is your take on the Rams' new uniforms?
I like them, but honestly, I've liked the Chargers uniforms better. They've gone back to the classic, the powder blues. So it's tough competition with them there, but I don't hate it. I know people hate on the logo. I don't mind it.
I like it all. I think their uniforms look great. I think the new color blue in the helmet looks great. I actually think the logo's fine. I'm a fan, but it's becoming a contentious conversation in my house with my 13-year-old son on who's running the uniform code here. Cardinals visiting the New York Jets, 6.5-point favorites. I mean, this is a stay away for me. It's Kyler Murray. You mentioned it earlier. He's kind of running around a lot and seems to have lost some of the mojo that made us so excited when he was a 14-1, when the odds were 14-1 for him to win the MVP. He did not look good this past week against a very bad Lions team.
Yeah, and I know Vegas, they're trying to scare me off again. I'm done being scared by them versus Jets team. I'm done. I will take, for the rest of the year, I will take whatever team they're going against. I don't care if it's the most public play of the week. I'm done with the Jets. Everything I've seen, they're poorly coached. Even when they're not giving up first downs on defense, they're giving it up because they do stupid penalties. I can't take the Jets anymore. So I don't care if it's a trap. I'm going to take the Cardinals. Give it to me 6.5. I'm happy with it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we can keep it out of competition because it's such a trap, but I'm betting it.
Well, here's a question for you. Do you feel like you bet every game?
I do, but it's like it depends on the games. Like I talked about earlier, like in Jersey now, that's why I think it's the mecca of gambling. We have like 21 or 22 apps on your phone you can do now, and then I can drive across the bridge and use another 12 or 13 apps in PA. So, like I gave out a bet last night on Twitter that I thought was really safe. I probably did that on the bet I gave out, probably did it on 15 sites. And then I went across the bridge and I did on 10 sites. So I'll just put 1,000 on each one and spread it around instead of just going on one site and loading up and popping up on their radar. Because the more you win, the books, they're going to beat you off. They're here to win. So that's what I do. I just really spread it around. But when it comes to every game in betting, it's like, it's small. Certain games, like I barely even touch. And I could be dead wrong and be like mad at myself that I had a perfect read on the game, but I'll just stay away because it's things I don't trust. Like that Houston and Vikings game last week, I might have had like $200 total on that game because I didn't want to even touch it. So there's certain games where I'll bet on it just because my system says there's value there, and I just always want to make a little profit here and there. But yeah, it's very different. Where one game might be 1% and another game might be 20% of my bankroll. So it fluctuates.
All right. So last night you just said that you went around and on about 15 or 20 different apps bet $1,000 each on the same game.
It was a parlay. So I did. I took the Chiefs down to 5.5, and I took Green Bay up to 4.5. So I paid anywhere from minus like 125 to minus 150, depending on the sites and like what time I got the line at. But it was one of those where I'm cool with putting a lot on that because in my system, like when I put the numbers in, the Chiefs not covering that by 6 points only had a 5% chance of happening. The Green Bay losing by more than 4.5 points last night had less than a 3% chance of happening. So like when I do those big bets, it's because I'm just playing percentage where it's saying you're getting crazy good value here, alternating these lines. That's why I'll take that value. But like every week, I don't really load up on bets like that. Like I like to spread it around just in case I am reading it wrong.
But then you ended up having like a huge chunk of change on those games last night. Even if the odds weren't that great, minus 125, minus 150, but then you made a freak load of money last night.
Yeah. I try to, like, people were saying that they're like, I'm shocked you do like the juice that high or the big that high. And it's like, if I think I'm going to win and it's like crazy good value, like if you come to me and you said, hey, this team's money line's minus 200, 0 chance they lose, I'll ride with you. If it's like a great read and I agree with it, like I don't mind putting, I don't know, 2,000 down to win 1,000. That's no problem to me as long as it's the winner. Because I bet so many dogs and money lines that it just eats away at the juice of these numbers, especially long term. It's one of those things I don't even mind, because people always ask me why I don't buy points. I don't buy points because that's a stupid way to lose money on a vig. Like, instead of me losing a bet where I took whoever plus 3.5 or minus 3.5 and buying it down to 3, I just lose at 110 or 115. Like, those do add up. That's why you should never buy numbers. You should just play the number as is.
Yeah, look, money management and sort of how to shop is one of the most important things you can think about as a bettor. It's something that we talk about constantly at Action Network. We have so many tools that make you think about that. Our entire site, our entire app is set up to give bettors in legal states the best opportunity to shop for the best lines that are available everywhere.
Right. And like we talk all the time, you have the power, you have the control. So when I'm on here saying I'm betting every game, don't get it wrong. There's games I load up on. That's what makes me money, is like, I don't have to bet the 5 games we pick in this contest. I could have just loaded up on the Bills and the Ravens. I had a great weekend. So it's one of those where you pick and choose your spots, and that's why it's so important to have a system or something, because when you see these big number discrepancies, it gives you so much confidence in making those bets, where if you don't, you're just betting the same unit every week. It's really hard to grind out those wins, because every week you're going to have bad weeks and you're not going to have that many good ones. So you really have to pick and choose people.
All right, so we're passing on the Jets and the Cardinals. I'm looking at the next game here. It's the Jags visiting the Bill O'Brien-less Texans. Last night, my 13-year-old, we were watching the games, and he went to the NFL memes handle on Instagram, and it was one of those 4 boxes that says, "It's so cool when dudes stand in front of the stuff they've destroyed." And it's got like, Will Smith in front of something he's destroyed. And it's got like 2 other actors, I don't know, standing in front of stuff they've destroyed. And then it's got Bill O'Brien standing in front of the Texans logo.
So you're telling me that kids these days are disrespecting Will Smith on meme pages? Unbelievable. That man's a treasure.
That's not what I'm saying. They love Will Smith. They're glorifying Will Smith. They're making fun of Bill O'Brien.
All right, good. Yeah, so I don't even want to tell you how much money I lost, but I had 3 head coaches I bet big on to be fired, and it worked out where I just needed one of them to hit, and I was going to make a nice little profit. And it was so stupid of me not to look at the schedule and say, this guy might start 0-3, 0-4, and he'll get fired. But I just didn't think, like, the owner's been letting him like burn his team down, trading all their draft picks and their best players away, and he never stepped in. So I was like, nah, there's no way Bill O'Brien gets fired, and man, was I wrong. But
what did you put the money on?
I have a ton on Gase. I have a ton on Quinn. And then last of all, I had a bunch on McCarthy for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Because I really thought early in the year, I was like, man, if they start bad, Jerry's going to get rid of him quick and just give the keys to Kellen Moore. And it's been going as planned. The offenses look great, and the rest of the team's been crap. But I don't think it matters now, because I already lost that bet. But for this game, I like backing teams that just fired their head coaches. It's usually one of those where the team bounced back. Like they hated the coach. They feel more freedom. They feel more loose. The coordinator's taking over. And from what we've seen from the Jags, they've been letting us down. That last week, that was a prime game that at worst, we should have covered that plus 3.5. And they came out in the second half just flat, and they got bullied. And I'm looking at it here where it's down to 6.5 now for Houston, and the majority of the public bets are coming in on the Jags. So that gives you more confidence that Houston's probably going to be the right side this week, and that's a really good number to take with them, 6.5.
Why do we like teams after they fire their coaches? I agree with you. I always love teams after they fire their coaches. I should go into our bet labs and figure out like what the precedent, the historical precedent is on how teams do against the spread the week that they fire their coaches. But like new quarterbacks and new coaches always give me a little bit of a pause betting against.
Yeah. And I'm with you on that. I don't know the exact numbers, but I feel like that's just something embedded in gamblers. It's like, oh, a new head coach, take it. So I'm with you.